Welcome to Photoshop User TV, produced by Photoshop User Magazine and the National Association of Photoshop Professionals. And here are your hosts, the Photoshop guys, Dave Cross, Matt Kloskowski, and Scott Kelby.
This week's episode is brought to you in part by CDW. For hardware, software, gadgets, and more, CDW has the right technology right now. And iStock Photo, the world's preeminent collection of member-generated royalty-free images and digital art. Azo, makers of high-end monitors for creative and moving image professionals.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another hastily arranged episode of Adobe Photoshop User TV, brought to you by the National Association of Photoshop Professionals. The fine people who bring you this magazine. Or this magazine. Photoshop User Magazine, a fine periodical featuring the likes of these guys right here. Periodical. Comes out periodically. Well, hi everybody, I'm Scott Kelby, and joining me as always are two fine men. Mr. Matt Kloskowski.
Welcome back, everybody.
And his brother, Dave Kloskowski.
Hey.
Or Dave Cross, either one, whichever you prefer. Hey, we've got an incredibly long show for you. No, we have a fun, short, sweet, wonderful, hastily arranged show for you. We have a special drop-in from Bert Monroy, who's going to be joining us a little bit later, and lots of other cool things. Hey, before we get started, I do want to tell you about something cool that I've got going on my blog. And what it is blogging.
Cool,
I do this thing called blogging. No, where I really
heard about it.
It's wild. No, but I've got a brand new contest that starts today. So you can go by my blog at scottkelby.com. And what it is I've written a book called the iPhone book. Well, here it is right here. And what I'm doing is each day I'll be drawing a winner to get a free signed copy of this book. It's by myself and Terry White. But beyond that, on the 10th day, are you ready for this? I'm going to draw, and someone will win an actual Apple iPhone. Ooh. Brand new in a box. You won't actually get my iPhone. You'll get a nice new one in a box. And you'll get a signed copy of the book. Wow. So stop by the website. You can register. There's no cost to enter. Just stop by, give us your credit card information. No. Stop by and just register, and I'll be picking out someone at random. It's a totally random thing done at random in a very random-like way. Thank you, Dave, for that great help. All right, start things off. We have Mr. Matt Kloskowski with a tutorial for you. I believe it is on some version of CS3.
Yes. That was good.
Thank you. It's
very random.
It's what I do best.
All right. So a couple weeks ago, I have a podcast called Lightroom Killer Tips, and I did a tutorial on that podcast, and it kind of caused quite a bit of, I should say,
buzz.
Yeah.
Buzz.
Hey, Matt is being very modest here.
Yes.
It was like the talk of the web. It was the very, very hot. Everybody was like, how did he do that? Oh, I wish we could do that in Photoshop. Was it something like that?
It was kind of like that. So that's what I'm going to show you here is, you don't need Lightroom to do it. You can do it in Photoshop. You can do it with a RAW file, which I have here. And of course, my camera raw dialog is not going to fit into the view, but you'll see enough of it. Now, we start off here, it can be any style of photo here, but
But it helps if it's an old car.
And I should tell you kind of what the technique is. It's kind of that surreal, gritty, edgy look is the best words that I can use to describe it. It's very, very scientific in creation. I take the recovery slider and I crank it up to 100. I take the fill light slider and I crank it up to 100. I'll take the contrast slider and crank that up to 100, as well as clarity and crank it up to 100.
This is excellent.
Isn't it?
How did you come up with this?
I don't know. It was very, very difficult. At this point, because usually the first things that we do is work on exposure and color balance and all that stuff. I come back to it afterwards and I take a look at what the photo looks. Sometimes it'll be too bright, sometimes it'll be too dark. In this case, it is a little too bright, so I'll bring it back. And then I will also increase my blacks a little bit just to give it a little bit more contrast. But where the technique starts to come in here is one little setting. Drag your saturation slider down almost all the way to the left, and it starts to take the color away from the photo.
Like -69.
Yeah. You normally would not do this. And I might brighten it up just a little bit like that.
But it's got a hint of the color.
A hint of the color, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, you can see like the little blue reflection in the
a little bit of red here. And then the last thing, and this is kind of the showcase of this effect, is there's always a large, huge degree of edge darkening here. So increase that amount, increase that midpoint. And if you take a look here, this kind of gives you a little bit of a preview before and after. So that's on the RAW file. At that point, you can just open up the image inside Photoshop, but you don't need to do it on RAW. You can do it on a JPEG. If you're inside Bridge and you have CS3, just click on a JPEG, File, and go to Open in Camera RAW. And you can do the same style of tutorial. Again, very scientific. Recovery, 100. Fill light, 100. Contrast, clarity. And then start to mess around with your exposure and your blacks a little bit. And finally, just bring down your saturation and take that color away. And then we give it our little edge darkening effect. And now you have it inside of Camera Raw. So you don't need plugins, you don't need to actually go into Photoshop to do it. You can do pretty much the whole thing right inside Raw.
You have done well.
Thank you.
Very cool.
How about that, Matt Kloskowski? He's good at Photoshop. Okay, hey, we have a special guest with us. Bert Monroy is here, and Bert, of course, is part of the NAP team. We are very honored to have Bert as part of the NAP team because, well,
He's a good guy.
he's a great guy, and he's not so bad at Photoshop either, we found. So take it away, Mr. Monroy. What do you got for us?
Hi, RC here, very, very nervously standing next to a living legend, Mr. Bert Monroy. Bert, thanks for stopping by.
Always a pleasure. Always.
So, we're here actually at Photoshop World in Las Vegas, and you have a tutorial for us.
Yeah, I'm going to do a little tutorial that's going to encompass a whole bunch of different things.
Great. So let's go ahead and take a look at it.
All right, what I'm going to do here, I've got this plain little gradient that I added some noise to it. It's just for the background. So what I want to do is create a lot of little water droplets all over this thing. So I'm going to put into a layer, and we'll get a color. It doesn't matter what color. I'm just going to go ahead and use a white because it'll stand out. The color that I'm going to use doesn't matter because everything's going to happen in layer styles. The actual color that's in this layer is going to disappear, as you're going to see. I'm going to get a nice hard edge brush here. I'll get a nice hard edge like that, and I'll just go in there and start drawing a couple of little touches. And I notice to get the flow down here, so let me bring this back up to 100%, and I'll just draw a couple of little shapes right here. This will be a little water drop. This will be a little puddle kind of a thing here, and another one up here. And let's make the brush bigger, and draw a big drop there, drop here, and one more right there. All right, so now we got all these little globs right there. They're kind of meaningless, but when I go into my layer styles, double click here and come up to the layer styles. Now water, even though water is transparent, it does have mass, so it casts a shadow, so we'll give it a little drop shadow. A little drop shadow right there along the edge, which I can control the size a bit, give it a little bit more of a size, and a tiny bit more distance. But I am going to bring down the opacity, because being water, it doesn't cast a deep shadow, it's going to cast a soft shadow. Just to give it that little hint, it also raises it from the surface, giving it some 3-dimension. Now, it's going to have a little inner shadow to it, right inside there, which I'm actually going to change the mode to overlay. Now, right off the bat, it looks like it disappeared, because most of those modes deal with how the pixels in this layer affect the pixels of the layers underneath. And especially the next one I'm going to choose, which is Bevel and Emboss. This is the one that's going to give it that curvature. Now, when I increase my depth here to make it really strong lights and darks, increase the size, so I get a much bigger kind of a drop, and I soften it up. Again, a lot of the effects are going to be based on the colors underneath, because that's what water does. Now, right now, again, we don't see the colors underneath. It looks like big blobs of toothpaste or something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my blending options. And in blending options, I'm going to deal with the fill opacity. Now, the opacity, that deals with the opacity for the overall layer. If I bring that down, you can see the entire layer becomes invisible. But the fill opacity deals with the actual pixels that were generated for that layer, the white pixels. The new pixels that are being generated for the effects, for the drop shadows and the inner shadow and such, since the overall opacity is still at 100%, those will remain at 100%, but the white pixels will disappear. So when I bring the fill opacity down to 0, you'll see that the white is gone, but the effect has remained. So now I can start playing around with the effects to make it really look like water. That highlight that I have right here, that's pretty good. I can go back to Bevel and Emboss here, and I'll make that a little stronger, like that. There we go. But the shadow, you don't get a shadow like that inside the water. Light is traveling through. So what really happens now is that the water acts like a little magnifying glass, and it intensifies the color, the saturations of the stuff underneath it as you look through it. So black right now in the shadow mode black is not going to do anything. It's not going to intensify color. And an important thing that I like to stress here is that just like filters, layer styles all have names and very specific details there. By adjusting these things, you can have these things do whatever you want them to do. So don't get caught up on the name of something, like in this case, the shadow mode. The shadow mode is black, it's set to multiply. But what I wanted to do is to intensify the color. So by playing around with the parameters there, I'm going to make it do what I want it to do. Black will not intensify, but white will. So I'm right off the bat going to change the color of the black to a white. Now it disappeared because being a shadow, it was set to multiply. I want to intensify the color, so I'm going to change the mode of the shadow to color dodge, and there you can see how it intensified the effect underneath. Now I'm going to bring down the opacity so it's not so strong. There's just a little subtle effect under there. Click OK. Now it starts to look like water. But one more thing is needed, because I said that water acts like a little magnifying glass, and you see that the grain in the background is pretty much even. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that layer of the water, and I'm going to turn it into a selection, and I'm going to send that selection over to an alpha channel. Save selection, and it's in an alpha channel. I can deselect it. Now I'm going to go over to that alpha channel, and I'm going to look at that alpha channel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to blur it. Because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create what's called a displacement map. I'm going to use this to bend that background. So I'm going to go in here and just give this a nice little Gaussian blur. Go down to the blur filters, go to Gaussian blur, and let's really blur the hell out of it. Let's go in there and really soften this up. About maybe somewhere right in between there. That's good. Click OK. Now it needs to be a separate file, so what I'm going to do a select all, copy, new, paste, and there's my displacement map. Now I'm going to close it, but I am going to save it because we need it. So when I save it, I'm going to call it map, and I'm going to put it right on our desktop. Now back into my regular image after that closes. There it is. Back in the image, I'm going to throw that away. We don't really need it anymore. And then what we're going to displace is the background. So I'm going to duplicate the background into another layer, just like that. And here we go. I'm going to go to Filter, Distort, and Displace. Now I'm going to leave it at the defaults, which is 10 and 10. I could push it up. In fact, let's push it up a little bit. I'll go to 12 and 12. Okay, click OK, and now it's asking me for the displacement map, that second image. And right there on my desktop, there's the map. So when I click OK, it's going to go in there and bend all those little pixels inside. See how it bends inside? Now I want to see them only inside the drops of water. So I'm going to go in there and turn the drops into a selection again. And in that layer, I'm going to add a layer mask. Now you might say, why don't you just clip it with the layer of the drops? The unfortunate thing about that is that since the fill opacity was lowered to 0, anything that gets clipped by that layer will be invisible, because it relies on the opacity of the layer in order to see it. So that's why instead what I did is I created a layer mask. Now, since I had an area selected when I created the layer mask, you'll notice that the little layer mask right here. And in fact, if you go to channels, you can see that layer mask. There you can see that the layer mask is the shape of the little drops themselves. So what you're seeing is the distorted grain in the background through the drops of water, creating the realistic effect that this is little drops of water.
Water, just in a couple minutes, all done in Photoshop. The master, Bert Monroy.
Thank you.
If we want to be able to see more stuff from Bert, where can we wind up catching your stuff?
Well, you can go to bertmonroy.com. BERTMONROY.com. Did I spell that right? Yeah. And there I have a news and events section. It tells you every place I'm going to be, where I'm going to do, my podcast, and everything is all outlined right there.
Perfect. Great. Well, Bert, thanks for stopping by.
It's a pleasure.
Hey, thanks, Bert. That was Bert with RC from Photoshop World in Las Vegas. And we're going to have some more of those in the future for you, as we had a chance to talk with lots of our instructors from Photoshop World. So that was great, wasn't it? It was. We'll be right back after this brief commercial message.
It's brief.
Very brief. Messaging.
Bob, it's gonna be a doozy. So were you able to get all your specialists on the line? Great. Hey guys. All right, I did everything you guys recommended, but I just want to go over things one last time. Okay, backup power, check. Data, check. Connectivity, yeah, check. All right, I'm good to go.
With Trained specialists to solve your most complex IT needs.
Beautiful.
We're there. CDW.
Bob! Yeah, we're gonna need to replace a few things.
This podcast is brought to you by Audible.com, the internet's leading provider of spoken word entertainment. Get a free audiobook download of your choice when you sign up today.
All right, everybody, we're back. Scott Kelby here with Matt Kloskowski, Dave Cross, and I have a tutorial for you. This is kind of just a thing that I noticed that a lot of people don't know that is in Photoshop sometimes. They're surprised to see that it's there, but it's called Picture Package, and we're going to look at what it does and then actually how to create your own custom picture package. You open up a photo that you'd like to have appear multiple times on the same page. Then you go under the File menu, under Automate, and you'll find a thing called Picture Package. This is kind of like the Sears Portrait Studio in a box. And what it does is, here's the Picture Package dialog window, and it lets you choose how many images you want up on a page. So if you want a 5x7 and a couple of 2x5 by 3x5s and a couple of wallet size, well, you can just choose whatever you want right from here, and it prints out on one separate paper. Well, that's kind of cool, but what I really want to point your attention to is down here where it says Edit Layout, because you can create your own custom layouts in the picture package. Just click on Edit Layout and it shows you your starting point. So I usually want to pick a starting point that's kind of close to where you want, or you can just hit Delete All and you're basically starting over from scratch. Now, each time a photo appears in here, it's called a zone. So to add a zone, you click the button called, you guessed it. Say it, Matt.
Add zone.
Add zone.
My
there
attention
we
is
go.
pointed.
All right. So once it comes in here, you can decide how large you want to make it, and you can do that. And if you crunch it in like this, let me just show you, it'll turn sideways. So if you crunch it in to a point where it hits the sides, it'll start to.
It actually keeps you from making the photo look bad.
Right, you want it fit this way, right? Now, if you want to make a duplicate, it's weird, right? So a lot of times you would control click, but if you try to control click in here, like most of Photoshop, if you control click or on PC, right click, up pops a menu, you do it, nothing happens. You actually hold for this one, I don't know why this one, Option. If you hold the Option key, up pops a pop-up menu. If you're on PC, of course, it would be Alt, and you can choose exact dimensions. So if you want it to be exactly a 5x7 or something like that, and it really, really wants to be a 5x7, doesn't it? It really wants you to use that. It will accept a 4x6 or 2x2, but what it really wants you to make is, you guessed it, a 5x7. If you want to make a copy of it, just hit Duplicate, and then it just makes another copy. So you can position that here, and then you can resize by just grabbing the little corners and making it like that. And we'll just turn it this way. And then again, Option click on Mac, Alt click on a PC, let you duplicate, make duplicates, and we'll just position this here. And you can make them any way you want to make up basically your own custom layouts and things like that. So that's it. As you can see over here, you can choose your size, and I like the way they make sizes that don't correspond to actual paper anymore. 8x10, great. I'll just put some of my 8x10 paper in. Oh wait. Anyway, but that's how it works. The old picture package thing. We're not going to save this. We'll just clear out here. So that's it. Just a little quickie on picture package. Something a lot of people don't realize. It's been in Photoshop, I want to say, since Photoshop 5.5. I think that's when it might have been 6, but it was way
Somewhere
back.
around there, definitely.
It was way back in those days.
Thank you, Mr. Kelton.
And definitely very automatic, too. I mean, you literally pick the picture.
And boom, away it goes. Oh, well, there was one other thing I wanted to show you.
Oh.
Because I'm just going to tell you because there's nothing showing you. You can also, instead of if you want more than one picture, you can replace and have 2 pictures on the same page. That was it. So it gets much more exciting than that. You just click on it and put another picture in. Okay, Mr. Cross, it is to you.
Okay, excellent. Well, I thought I would...
kind of caught you off guard there, didn't I?
No, not at all.
Dave, I'm done.
I'm just sitting here waiting.
You're up, go.
Okay. You've heard us talk in glowing terms about the vastly improved photo merge function in Photoshop CS3, how all those things you have to worry about previously, like using tripods and all that you don't have to do that as much. So we've already shown you that, but it occurred to me, I came across this panel that I did in where was that place it was? Oh yeah, Alaska. It's like 12 or 13 photos, all, again, just very handheld, quick kind of thing. But I thought, okay, this is all very nice to have something this big, but how can I show it to someone on my web page? Because obviously in order to fit it in, it would have to be slimmed down so much. So I thought, what better than to take advantage of this also feature that many people aren't aware of, perhaps, called Zoomify.
Yay, I love Zoomify.
Zoomify is great because it's just so easy to use.
It's new in CS3.
It's new in CS3, and as long as you have your file ready to go, as I do here. You choose what type of look you want. I'm going to choose to have this one, which just says viewer with gray background. And then I will click, make a new folder for it. This, choose that, and then give it some base name. And basically at this point, all I have to do is choose the quality. I want this to be a fairly high quality image. You can also decide how big you want the browser area to be, so how big it will start off. So I'll make it a good size to begin with, something like this. And I'm going to also open it in a web browser so I can see what it looks like. And then that's it. Then you click OK, and in sheer moments, it opens up.
In sheer moments.
There you have it. So now, a little odd, I noticed that the so-called navigator, apparently if you didn't know it was there, you'd almost not see it. There's a little teeny tiny blue square that you can drag, and as soon as you move the navigator to a different position, it updates. You can also zoom in and zoom back out, and then use the little scroll thing. So now I've got my entire pano showing up in this window. So instead of having to scale it way down to fit the whole thing on a regular size browser window, now I have this lovely interactive panoramic photo that people can play with just by playing with Zoomify. And you saw how quick that was. It was really quick and simple.
Oh, that's awesome.
And you can do it with, it's also a great way to take a high-res photo and make it look small to begin with, but so then people can zoom into the full size to see the quality. See how easy that was?
To see if you used autofocus or not.
Yeah, which you can I tried to zoom by that part fairly quickly because there is an area in there that right about there. Oops. That didn't work so well. But Zoomify did a great job, even though my photography was not optimum.
How about that? Hey, you know what a great time would be to go to the news right now, wouldn't it?
I think so.
I think it would.
All right, we're jumping over to the Photoshop Action News Center for the latest in
Newsification.
Newsification. We'll be right back, or here it is, or whatever.
Bye.
First off, Epson has introduced the signature-worthy exhibition fiber paper. It's a new kind of inkjet paper that has been getting rave reviews for its black and white and color printing. Check it out today. And next, Digital Photo and Art has launched their site that offers fine prints from photographers such as Scott Kelby, Ben Wilmore, Jim DiVitale, and digital artist Bert Monroy. Check that out today. Now let's take a look at Photoshop on the road. Dave Cross will bring the CS3 Power Tour to Sacramento October 26th and Portland on November 12th. Scott Kelby will be in Tampa on October 30th with his Lightroom tour and takes the CS3 Power Tour to New York on November 6th. InDesign Tour with Taz Talley comes into Phoenix on November 30th. Ben Wilmore brings his Photographers Tour to Denver on October 25th. Bert Monroy takes his Illustrator Tour to Chicago on November 5th and his Photoshop Creativity Tour to San Diego on October 29th. I'm Stephanie Cross, and I'll see you back next week.
Hey, we are back. Just want to mention before we get to the contest that I'm going to be in Tampa, Florida at the Tampa Convention Center doing my Lightroom Live tour on October 30th. So if you want to come down, hang out with me, do the whole Lightroom thing. It will be the second to last stop for the year. The last stop, of course, is December, I think, 2nd or 3rd in Honolulu, Hawaii. If that's a far trip for you, everybody flies to Tampa so inexpensively. Come on down and hang out with me for the day. Should be a lot of fun. Lightroom Live, the 30th.
Hey, we might even just come too because it's
can I come?
just down the street.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, I'll see you there.
So Matt and Dave will be there. We'll maybe do a little Photoshop TV guys use Lightroom thing.
Scribb's
Oh,
like,
Scribb's going. Scribb's going. Eric, you going, bro? All right. Tammy, you going? I will. Okay. Anyway, we'll all be there. Scribb will be there. Eric will be there. You'll get to see us all. And people you don't even want to see. Like, well, RC. Oh, just kidding. All right. So it's contest time. Dave Cross.
Yes, sir. Last week we had a contest and we showed you a dialog box and we said what's missing from this dialog box. And of course, if you hadn't figured this out, you wouldn't know. So I'll tell you, it was the healing brush, and what was missing was the word size because there's a pop-up menu there.
Dave
Cross. What was missing. So, from all the many, many entries, this lucky person right here won some fabulous prizes. Good
Those
for
are
that
fabulous.
person.
Fabulous.
So, following that successful contest, we thought, hey, you know what? Let's have another.
Why not?
So what are they going to win, Matt?
Speaking of fabulous, we have a copy of Matt Kloskowski's Photoshop CS2 Speed Clinic.
Have you ever met him?
It can be yours. He is.
He's
I
so
did. He's
down
a
to earth. I
nice
couldn't
guy.
believe it. He seemed, on TV, he
Nice
seems so
guy.
arrogant, but in person, he's the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet.
Nope.
So you'll win that.
Speaking of fabulous, once again,
Now, this guy's got a problem.
we have a copy of Mr. Dave Cross's Photoshop Finishing Touches. Again, you can win this.
He's the opposite of how you see on TV. On TV, he seems very nice and friendly. In person, he's incredibly arrogant. He's unlivable.
He gets up in your face and he
does.
points
He's
at
in your
your
face.
chest.
He points, hey, man, hey. A lot of that kind of stuff. It's very intimidating.
Imagine they'd probably also get a nap.
Get a whole subscription to the National Association of Photoshop Professionals. Go check out NAP at photoshopuser.com. Find out about this great magazine where you can read things from me and Matt and Dave and people that you don't even know or care about.
And along with that, all the back episodes to Photoshop TV.
For free, FREE, free. Okay, now we like to leave you with 3 things to do between this week and next week.
Contest question.
Da!
Slow down there,
We were
Zippy.
going to have a question that was like just throw in any answer would have been correct. But instead, take a look at this dialog box and once again, fill in the blanks. What's missing off the blank button? Send your answer. Go to Photoshop User TV website and look for the Enter the Contest thing. Enter once, have fun, good luck, we hope you win.
Hey, Matt, how many times can they enter?
Once.
I can't believe I remembered that.
Once.
Once.
Okay, Zippy.
Here are 3 things from this
One
week,
thing.
blah, blah, blah.
No, 3.
All right, 3 things. Number 1, go to a website that I go to every single day, imaginginsider.com. If you're into this whole industry and what the workings behind it and all that kind of stuff, great site, tons of information. You could not update a site more than they update that site. Go check it out, imaginginsider.com, or all the links mentioned on today's show, including where to go to my Lightroom tour, kelbytraining.com, will be on our website, photoshopusertv.com. Matt, give us one.
Check out 1001 Noisy Cameras. It's a great little blog for reviews, buzz, industry news, anything. Rumors, all kinds of cool stuff.
Comment.
So it is very.
I love it. I go there
very,
every
very
day.
Cool site. Yes, it's another one
Another
on the
one
daily list.
on the daily list.
PhotoshopUserTV.com. We'll put the link there. Bye.
Dave Cross, Canadian Boss.
Hey, you've heard us talk about Layers TV. If you haven't already checked it out, actually you can go to the Layers magazine website for other information, but also a direct link to the Layers TV podcast covering things not only Photoshop, but other Adobe Creative Suite products as well.
You can actually watch it right there on the Layers
Right
homepage.
there,
Just
right
click
there.
and boom, it plays just like that. It's crazy.
It's crazy, it's crazy.
All right, I got one for the road for you. My one for the road is, well, it's this one right here. All right, my one for the road is a Camera Raw tip because we can't get enough of Camera Raw. My tip is something that you might not realize about Camera Raw. You know how you rate images in the bridge, you assign like star ratings and stuff? You can actually do your star ratings here. If you notice, if you click on one of these little things on the side, there are the little 5 dots, and you can use a lot of the same keyboard shortcuts like Command 1, Command 2, Command 3, or on PC would be Control 1, 2, 3 to assign dots. Or if you want to just move the ratings up or down, I said assign dots, I meant assign stars, but
We
you
knew
knew
what
what I
you
meant. Okay. If you hold the Command key and the period, it adds, or the comma, and it takes away. So you can also rate multiple files at once and stuff like that. See, look at that.
Sweet.
Very cool. So you can kind of do your, I went down to 0, which rejects it.
Cool.
All righty. Well, there you go. Guys, thank you so much for spending another week with us here at Photoshop User TV. We appreciate it on a level you cannot even imagine. On behalf of myself and Matt Kloskowski
Take care, everybody.
and the wonderful Mr. Dave Cross,
See you next time.
who is in person the same as he is off person.
Okay. I'll go with that.
We'll see you next week right here on Photoshop User TV.
Bye now.
Bye now. It said what he said.
Bye now.
There you go. Follow Dave's lead. He's always right.
Okay, I got it. Sorry. And next, Digital Photo and Art has launched their website to Why Am I Talking Like a Robot? I Don't Know. Blah, blah, blah.